In four, three, two, one. So give it a second to get booted up. Okay.
Welcome, welcome to D&D, guys. I am Justin, the DM, and we are doing something a little bit more informal tonight. One of our members is missing, and so I think we had planned last week to do a giant recap of the adventure, and we are going to attempt that tonight. Yeah, hopefully you're willing to listen to our voices for as long as it takes to get the story out. We've been playing D&D in any form for about since 2015, so about 6 years. March of 2015 was right around the time when I started DMing for the first time with both Wes and Doug, who were really excited and eager to sit down at the table and just tell a good story. So we're going to try. I'm going to try, with the help of the players here, to retell this story from the beginning, and as best to our memory as possible. And hopefully, this will be some level of archive capture of our adventure to date. So, um, I guess we'll start. In the beginning, there were three adventurers, three players. I played a character named Orla Janice, and it was and is, she's still in the story, a gnome bard, who is very peppy and is very upbeat and is like a cheerleader, and was kind of the mover and shaker of the group, and was a motivator of sorts. Um, the other two players were Enceladus, who is also a current player in the adventuring party, played by Wes, and the other character was Occam, which is a character that none of you listening have heard of, but was played by Doug. And I'll have both of them kind of quickly describe their characters in the beginning, and then I'll give some context to the setting. So, Wesley, do you want to describe Enceladus for us?
Yeah, my character, her name is Enceladus. She's a female Vryloka, and Vryloka is half human, half vampire. Their race is known for having a very long lifespan, up to possibly 300 years or longer. She's a warlock, and um, you know, she has, I guess, as they all do, maybe a bit of a sordid past. She her family, um, some of her family lives in Sharn and sort of the upper echelons of that society, and she spent some time there, in her formative years, as she was developing her arcane skills and talents. And eventually, she ended up breaking away from her family and wandering for a bit until she ran into uh, a group of other warriors. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Wes, will you describe Occam for us?
Or Doug, or
Or I'm sorry, Doug. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, was a Minotaur cleric. He was found as a young calf um, and adopted by a human family and raised in Arcanix, where he also went to school there and learned the art of healing, the art of being a cleric. As a pretty big guy, he was good at both defending and healing. He had a heart for that. Um, but he always felt like there was a big piece of his life missing because he did not know his lineage or his parents or anything like that. And so that was kind of a part of him that was always a big question mark in wanting to know where his connection was. Minotaurs are not common in Eberron, and so for him to be, peeled off from the herd and left alone, it would be hard to link up with other Minotaur communities when you can find them, and then ask them questions. So um, he really just was very much so a nomad seeking answers, and happened to, with Orla and Enceladus, becoming friends with them, and kind of just walking their road for a while.
Great. So I guess backing up just a little bit, our setting is Eberron, and if you're not familiar with Eberron, there's a wiki, there's a whole bunch of information online. It's a setting that was created by Keith Baker for 3.5 edition. We're playing 4th edition. It's the edition that Doug introduced me to back in the very beginning when it just came out. Doug, you were in a group with a couple other guys you knew that played 4th edition, right?
I was brought to it and sort of just learning the ropes. So basically, we were learning the ropes at the same time. That group was very short-lived, and but it was enough to be able to gain some of the information that you and I were able to kind of pick up the pieces that when I moved up to Bellingham, we thought, hey, it could be a good idea to sort of cobble something together, make it work.
Yeah, right. So so that's our setting and our system, and the rest of our group, they come from different systems and different settings, and we all kind of were able to make Eberron work. In a little bit here, as soon as we start talking places and people and places, we'll put up a map of the main continent in the plane of Eberron, and we'll kind of follow the path of our adventurers along that map. So you'll be able to get a better idea of where people were and where things happened. So in the beginning, these 3 adventurers were kind of just they met, and I feel like Orla's personality was sort of the glue. She was sort of like the cheerleader, the hey, let's do this, we can make this happen sort of thing. And they started dungeon delving in the Tomb of the Six Kings, and if we're able to pull that map up, Jake, we can sort of I can highlight what that is. So the Tomb of the Six Kings is to the northwest of or to the southeast of a town called Greywall in Droam. It's right on the border. It's right there. And it's in the Greywall Mountains. And if you can imagine, it's this giant valley, and there are statues of dwarves, that 3 dwarves on each side that line this valley, and there are several different catacombs that kind of Swiss cheese through the mountains in the north end of the Greywall Mountains, and there's a lot of untold treasure and things to find and things to adventure and seek, and that's basically where these 3 adventurers started. We ran 2 encounters before we started the campaign proper. In one of the encounters, we came upon a clearing. We were asked to sort of clear out a clearing. It was sort of a druid circle that was of question, and there was a specter that was haunting this druid circle, and we took him out. And in the process, we found some mushrooms, some curious mushrooms. And I'm trying to remember who actually ate the mushrooms. Do you guys remember who?
That would be Enceladus.
Went ahead and ate the mushrooms.
I was hungry, okay? I came across some mushrooms. I hadn't had breakfast that day. I was like, hangry. And so I just started devouring them. And before I knew it, I basically disappeared into nothingness, like some sort of abyss or something
Yeah.
like.
It was some sort of like a hallway realm that just wasn't quite to any one direction.
It was the back rooms. I think
It
that's
was
the
Back
technical
rooms.
term.
right. Yeah, it was behind all of the Hollywood sets,
Yeah.
and you were trying to make your way through.
Mm.
And then suddenly you reappeared to the both of us, and we asked you several questions about where you had been and what you saw and everything. And you said, I don't know, it feels like I've been gone forever. And I think it was Occam that had the wherewithal to say, I'd like to take some of these mushrooms with us.
Yeah.
Occam definitely collected those and thought these could come in handy later. Don't know when, don't know where. But sneaking someone a roofie mushroom might come in handy if we have to do it. So
For sure.
that's kind of the thought behind it.
Yeah. And in all fairness, we eliminated the Spectre and collected our bounty. We also did a second encounter that was actually closer to the Six Kings setting. Well, kind of. There really isn't a setting for the Six Kings. You can make it whatever you want. But we took I took, as the DM, I took an encounter out of a supplement called Dungeon Delve, which was the 4th edition supplement that actually takes you through an encounter in every range, every level, all the way up to level 30, which is the maximum level that 4th edition allows. And the very first one was a simple, like, kobold sort of protected cavern that had like a white worm at the very end, like a white dragonling. And we ended up going through that one and finding some random things. It wasn't as eventful as the disappearing mushroom trick, but it was fun. And we were all the while learning the system. I was learning how to DM. We were learning how to play our characters. It was a really good time. We used paper maps on a solid table, and we're not online. Didn't have any virtual tabletop or anything like that. It was just pure in-person dice rolling. So
We just lost Joe.
okay, we can
So-
wait till he comes back.
Let me take the names down off the stream so it's not all jumbled.
No, yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Oh, there he is. He's back. So, after those first two encounters, I took DMing more seriously, and I actually started to write a lot. I started to take a lot of time to flesh out this adventure that we were going on. And at that point, I named it Search for Decivis, because I had some ideas. I had some thoughts in mind about where this would go. I also did not want to be a player for very long, and I wanted to move into the DM role solely. So I wrote out a bunch of stuff. After those two encounters, the adventurers sort of collected themselves in a town called Ardev, which is in Breland. And I will splash it on the screen here. It's just to the south.
Oh, and hold up. I am
Okay.
going to, anytime, I didn't want to just leave the map up so that people can see our faces. So we'll have less
Got it.
map time, more face time. And
Okay.
of course, there are a few people that are in the chat right now that are watching the stream.
Okay.
I'll say it a couple of times. If you guys have any questions or if we go over anything too fast, just go ahead and pop it up in the chat. And
Yes,
I
very
will
good.
let Justin know because I'm keeping an eye on it. But I'm going to
Okay.
go ahead and transition us over to Roll20 so that Justin can show you what we're talking about.
And I'll let you know when we need the map if that's the case. There are points where there is a lot of story, but for the most part, we're going to be following the adventure on the map because a lot of it was geographic. So, anyway, if the map's up, I'm going to splash the town of Ardev right there, and so the adventurers. So I had written out this really detailed hook. And in the beginning, I didn't know anything about what railroading was or how to allow the characters to have a lot of choice and option. So I pretty much just wrote it for them. And in our dev, they had come back from their adventure. They were wandering through the town square, and a courier came up to Orla and handed her an official letter. And Orla, the other players watched Orla open this letter, read it to herself, and all of a sudden start crying, like really emotional. And she basically said, "You don't have to go with me, but my father's died, and I need to go to his funeral." I made this up, but the gnomes, I made this part of gnome culture up. They do what's called ascending, and will sort of be witness to the moving of the spirit to the afterworld, or the final resting place. And I don't know where I got that idea. It's not part of Eberron canon, but I thought it would be kind of a cool way to bring everyone along on Orla's adventure to her hometown.
Cool idea.
Which is Olenberg. So she sort of gives them, the players, an ultimatum at that point. Hey, you can go with me. It's not a big deal. I just have to do this. And I don't know what I would have done if the two players at that point would have said, "Hey, we're just going to chill here." But they very readily agreed. "Oh yes, of course, we will go with you," because we have nothing really else to do. So they assumed that they had nothing else to do, but I had actually planned out two adventures if they did not want to go. One was a delve into a haunted mine just to the east of our dev, and the other one was a pirate adventure off the coast. And if they did not want to go with Orla, which I was perfectly happy with them deciding not to, they could have picked one of the other two hooks. And this story would have been drastically different if they would have chosen either of those two, because I might have given up on the idea of searching for Decivis and gone in the direction of the players. So that's a fascinating tidbit. But that also was me learning how to be a DM and not to overplan, and to just have adventures at the ready and to recycle and be very frugal. And that was me overplanning. I have pages and pages of narration that I read to these guys, and I didn't really have to do that either. I just was trying to follow, the actual published adventures that were out there that did have pages of narration, and it was fine. It was fine that we did. It was fun.
That's
Anyway,
good, yeah.
so we I guided this small group of three to the south, kind of talking them through the whole situation. And before they got to Galaspire, right here next to the upper Dagger River, they were ambushed. I don't know if you guys remember this. Ambushed by orcs on griffins. And there was a small battle that ensued. There was climbing of trees, which was kind of a fun thing that happened. Eventually, the orcs were vanquished, but there was a unique coin that was found on one of the dying orcs, and he did have something to say as he was dying. Do either of you remember what he was saying?
No, I can't remember. I really remember. This is so long ago.
6 years ago. I don't remember.
It was 6 years ago. Yes. I actually don't remember what he said, in the moment, but it was something leading you to the idea that the Miners Guild was after you. It was early in the story that the Miners Guild was searching for you.
Spoiler alert: those guys suck.
Anything to get in trouble yet?
Right.
I know. I'm like, how are they already like on her tail?
Right. I mean,
That makes me like them even less.
this is
Right.
what I was
It
hoping
wasn't
you
long
were
after that.
asking. I was hoping
Long
that
after
you were
that we
saying,
ended
what,
up- pissing him off anyway. So
Right, exactly, yeah. My hope in the beginning was you guys were asking, why is the Miners Guild bothering us? So
Yeah.
anyway, you guys made it to Galaspire.
Wait. Hang on. So what? Why did the orc say the Miners Guild was? Did the characters ask at the time, or did they just say, "Oh, okay, Miners Guild"?
I don't think we even. I
Sure
think
killed.
I've never heard of it. So
what happened? And we found a coin, so there was no one to talk to. We just knew that the Miners Guild was after us, and Wesley and I and then Justin also. We were still new to
Oh,
all
yeah.
of this, so we were really into or understanding the role play aspect of it, asking questions, trying to think around it.
Sure.
For us at this point, it was mainly figures on a board, rolling dice, hacking and slashing, and just trying to figure out the mechanics of the game.
Mhm.
The story was with it, but I think if we had the experience now, and we were playing that, then we'd probably be asking some of these questions and wanting to know more. Why are the Miners Guild after us? Why are they being such buttheads? We
Right.
don't know.
So what I'm hearing you say is this is all your fault.
Yes.
The ground was laid from the very beginning for it to be a pain in your side the whole time. So,
Then we've
'cause-
just slowly pulled everybody else into our problem. So, yep.
right.
We do. You guys will, from listening to this, you will learn that there is almost always a trail of bodies
Yeah.
anywhere
Yeah.
we go.
As you listen, for those of you that are tuning in, the Miners Guild becomes a major player in the problems of the adventurers and potentially the solution. But we'll keep that to the very, very end.
I'm curious, Justin. Do they need to know who Decivis is, or is that going to become clear as we tell the story more?
It'll become more clear, but I can give a little bit of backstory. So there are 12. There are 13 houses, but there are 12 official houses in the world of Eberron, and these like family houses sort of represent like if you think of it really in terms of like mob bosses or mob families, it's kind of like that. These houses have really strong familial ties, but they also have a tie to a specific manifestation of this beautiful but powerful tattoo that shows up on some of their progeny. And the tattoo is called a dragon mark, and it gives them specific powers, and their houses sort of capitalize on those powers, and it's sort of like a corporation, like a bunch of mega corporations that use these specific powers to sell their product. Eberron is very much a world of mundane magic, where you might buy a broom that automatically sweeps your kitchen, but that broom was made by one of the houses, and probably will run out quickly, so you have to buy another broom from that house. It's very much a game of economics. It's a game of subterfuge and intrigue. There are a lot of problems with these houses that they fight between them, but they can't survive without each other. This setting takes place, it starts 4 years after this great war between 4 or 5 different regions and 12 different houses fighting a war over territory and over control and over any number of things for about 100 years. And it ended with a giant catastrophe. One of the regions of the continent of Corvair was completely decimated by a giant explosion. This huge rift opened in the ground and killed everyone living there in the whole region. And it's now a desolate wasteland. And it is a part of our story, and I'll touch on that more as we go. But Decivis,
And it's covered by like a fog, so even if you go into it,
Yep.
like there's just some bad juju that happens to you in terms of you've got to accustom to this new atmosphere, and it can kind of reduce your ability to do well.
Yeah, I mean, a real meta
So-
example is, a metaphor is like nuclear fallout. Like it really is it's a no-go zone, unless you are acclimated or adapted to the quote unquote radioactivity of the area. But anyway, the Civis is one of the Civis is one of the houses, and as the story progresses, you'll see how that plays into to the storyline. But that's it. Yeah, I mean, there's so much background, and if those of you listening really are curious about it, there are volumes and volumes of information on Eberron. If you go to Keith Baker, like Keith Baker has a website, and he's active in a lot of forums, and he publishes a lot of, he has a couple books that are decent, about that are set in the setting. But anyway, he's on a podcast called Manifest Zone. There's a lot of different ways to get information on Eberron, and we could spend 12 hours talking about it and still not reach every corner.
1,200 hours.
1,200 hours, and still not reach every corner of it. But for the most part, I'll try to highlight as we go the important parts. But if you think of it as sort of like the Godfather-esque, mob, gang warfare, and like film noir sort of setting, that's generally what you're going to get in Eberron. We don't have magic wand guns, but that's the next step. But anyway, so we find our three adventurers in sort of like this this kind of end run to Zolenberg, which is where the sending is going to happen, where Orla's family is holding this this service for her father. Murtali is his name. So they make it through Galaspire. They hitch a ride on a wagon to the town of Rote, which is where they're going to catch the lightning rail. And the lightning rail is a whole network of trains in this world that run on magic. There's a bound elemental at the front of the actual train, and there are special stones that are embedded in the ground where the elemental can follow. It's similar to a train system, and what would a good film noir setting be without an actual train system? So that's how the creators of Eberron worked that in. So they barely made it to Rote. I remember writing in a whole bunch of really emotional connection, points, it being the middle of the night and them being able to like finally get on the last train out of Rote, and Orla being very sort of melancholy and emotional about her father and sort of detached, very uncharacteristic of her, who is very much a cheerleader. Anyway, so they have some time on the train to talk. They play cards, but for the most part, Orla keeps to herself, and the other two adventurers sort of stay to themselves too. Really nothing of note on the train. They do make it with a couple of sort of transfers. They make it to Zolenberg, and do you guys remember, the two of you remember what Zolenberg was, or how it like felt to you?
Is this the place that we had that encounter with the Miners Guild? I mean, I feel like it has a Miners Guild presence there or something like that.
Yeah, that was leaving Zolenberg, and we'll get there.
Remember the town?
Where's Zolenberg from Rote?
Let me splash it for you here. It is in the province of Zalargo, and it is kind of in the mountains, the Seawall Mountains between Zalargo and Dargoon.
Okay, so they were previously in Rote over here.
Yep.
And
so
this red line here.
The orange line is the lightning rail.
Okay.
And so they went all the way up to Starlasker, and then they had to go. It's the same train, but they followed it down through Sterngate, and then along the Seawall Mountains, and ended. They got off the train in Zolenberg. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
And is that where Orla's family lived
Yes,
or lives?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
remember going to the funeral,
Yeah.
and I remember the house, her house
Yep.
a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll read a little bit of. So they did make their way immediately to Orla's house. I had a lot of different choices for you guys to make if you wanted to explore the town or not. But that was again, a immature DM that overplanned and I had a decision tree. I had this giant tree of decisions, and you guys went right to Orla's house, and like all the other decisions were like, really? So I have to say, if you ever go to Zolenberg ever again, I
Good
have
luck.
an amazingly large amount of things for you to decide to do if you'd like. That I have
Really nice in the summer.
It is, yeah. It's very beautiful in the summer. The mountain breeze catches up with the ocean breeze, and it just becomes a wonderfully quaint place.
Maybe
Low
Celestine's in
crime.
Zolenberg.
High mountain heather, just a gorgeous place. So
People are
anyway.
friendly, safe.
Depending on the branch of the tree you choose, they are friendly. Yeah, for the
Oh.
most part. Yeah. There are places that are not friendly.
Just remember Zolenberg, lots of gnomes,
Yep.
few dwarves, and that it seemed like a generally friendly place, but on the surface kind of friendly.
Yep.
A little bit hard to read. That was the way I remember it.
That's exactly the way you should remember it. Now I remember you guys did go to a store and you did buy some things, but I don't remember if you did that on your way out of town or on your way into town. 'Cause I do remember there was a chalk that you bought. Maybe.
Was that the glowing chalk?
Yeah. Did you buy chalk then?
I thought that we found that chalk inside of a barrel.
They found the chalk in Eston, I think, later. If it's
That's
it's the chalk I'm thinking of.
It is, and I think
Spoilers.
I think I recycled that. So anyway, I might just delete all of that. That in my notes, I have listed a lot of things that you guys have already found, but it's because I already discovered them.
I would love to take a look at those notes someday.
I'm sure that you would. Maybe that will happen. I think I'm gonna go ahead and read what I wrote to describe going to Orla's house, because that's a lot of it was narrative. There weren't a ton of decisions to make at that point, but a lot of that section was me just guiding the players through the narrative. So okay. So Orla says, because it was a decision, Orla said, I'm glad you chose to stay at my house. My Aunt Sira is the only one left there, and it would be good for her to have the company at this time. Orla says, after the long hike up the spine, you see a humble home nestled up against a sheer stone cliff. As you enter, you're greeted by the smell of a warm house and a table full of food. An old, frail-looking gnome embraces Orla and says, I knew you would come back for this. My own children will not come. I'm glad you're here, my darling. After they share a moment of silence in each other's arms, they both turn to face you. And this is you, the other two players. Orla points to you and says, Sira would like you to meet... Sira, would you like to meet my company? Sira looks at you with warm eyes and says, you look tired. Would you like to eat? You oblige and sit down to one of the best meals you've ever had in your life. And that's saying a lot, because I know where the both of you had come from. Sira looks at you with warm eyes and says, you oblige and sit down to one of the best meals you've had in your life. There is wine and reminiscing, more conversation, more wine. You're aware of how much food you have eaten or wine, or you're unaware of how much food you have eaten and wine you've consumed. But there are stories of Orla's childhood and of Murtali. It seems they seem to have no end and are wildly entertaining. Orla and Sira are doing most of the talking. You're just enjoying the moment. You do sense a reservation from the two and notice there's a deeper conversation going on in their eyes and their posture and their glances. You cannot decipher. Suddenly the tone changes and Orla looks directly at you and says, I need to tell you something. This is important and you must know this if we're going to continue. She pauses and looks over at Sira and then continues. Murtali Severance de Civis was my father. And so I guess in the beginning, you guys didn't know this. That was sort of a reveal at that point.
Oh, okay.
And so you guys didn't really know Orla very well either. So a lot of this is also a reveal to you as far as who she is and what she's doing. So
Meaning specifically the de Civis part, they didn't realize she was part of a Dragon March family.
Exactly, because in our dev, she was going as Orla Janus. And so she was sort of going under a half pseudonym and trying to not share with people that she was from House Civis. And so that was the reveal at this point. For her to be a little bit more important than you thought that she was to start. But tears well up in the corner of her eyes. She starts again, resolute not to let emotion stop her. He was working on an extremely important mission for House Civis. The mission was supposed to be absolute top secret, but I suspect that he was being pursued and ultimately killed by those who opposed his work. Sira continues the disclosure. We planned for his death. He knew it was inevitable, and we made preparations. His work must not be lost. Orla trusts you, and so do I. We need your help. Orla speaks up again. His sending will be an actual event on all accounts. No one other than us will have any knowledge otherwise. We know that the Miners Guild wants Sira dead and Father's work destroyed. Murtali chose the place of his sending very carefully. In that alpine valley, there's a hidden cave, fully stocked so Sira can disappear after the ceremony and will be unharmed as she can slip away out of the city. In this house, Murtali has a very small workshop off the back where everyone assumes he has been working. His real work is done in a cavern below this house. There's a secret stone door to his small workshop that needs to be sealed with magic. Sira will spend the night enchanting. When the guild comes to destroy this house, they will only be able to burn what is seen. Sira and Orla seem to have practiced this speech. You feel a bit like a carefully selected mark. Sira finishes with the punchline. This is where you come in. Murtali's journal needs to be delivered to the hands of House Civis. She produces a large bound and latched book from under the table. Orla will be highly suspect after the sending, and she must not be caught with this journal. I know this is asking a lot from someone you just met, but I need you to guard that book with your life. The fate of Eberron hangs in the balance. Until House Civis gets Murtali's research, you immediately grab your cup and drain your wine. You didn't expect this and take a moment to consider. A few thoughts flash through your head, but you land on the statement, okay, I'm in this, let's do it. Sira hands you the book and you slip it into your pack, and Orla says, you might become a target if you go to the sending, and you might be a target if you don't go. The guild saw you arrive with me, and it might be considered strange that you did not attend Murtali's sending. I don't know how to advise you, but I'll let you sleep on it. Please let me know in the morning. I need to sleep now, and Sira has a long night ahead. You are shown the guest room. It will be close quarters, but your mind is reeling, and sleep might elude you. You must have nodded off. Sometime in the early morning, you're awoken by Orla at the doorway. Hey, wake up. What are you doing? So then there's a decision of whether you're going to go to the sending or whether you're going to stay back and behind. And both of them decided to go to the sending. Now, that whole interchange I definitely read to you guys. And Joe, by his half smile, is basically saying, I didn't know any of this. And this would have been really, really important to know going into his meeting at some point in the future. Knowing what he knows about the journal now. Yeah, exactly. Right. Anyway, I just trusted that the information would be handled well, and we just went on from there. But you made the decision to go to the sending. I think I'm trying to remember who took the book. I think Enceladus took the book to start. Murtali's journal. Is that right? I think you did.
Temporarily. I didn't hold on to it for very long, I don't think, though.
No. I think you gave it to Occam.
Occam
At some point.
ended up carrying it.
I think that's right.
The time I remember.
So I wrote up a really long write-up about the details of the sending, but we can pretty much sum it up. So I made up this this ritual, this gnomish ritual of the sending, where everyone was sort of on this this mountain face. You know, they were kind of all facing the the sun, or the mountain top as the sun was setting behind them, and they started passing around this big jug of juice, and everyone was taking a swig and then passing it on. And here is this like sort of sea of gnomes, and you see this giant minotaur and this beautiful lady in red, and the jug is suddenly passed to Occam. And I think you can take it from here, Occam.
Decides it's a good idea to take and they're doing it, I will too. And it ended up being a bad idea because poor Occam went on a really bad trip from it.
Yes.
And I remember there was a choice. The choice was clearly laid out. You can drink from it if you want. You don't have to.
Right.
And for some reason, Occam thought, oh well, everyone here is, and I will too. And for him, it just was not a happy reaction.
So Enceladus decided not to. She handed the jug. She passed the jug, and it kept going. The importance of the gnome juice was that it made a bridge in each gnome that took the juice in order to help the spirit of Murtali make it to the plane of peace, or wherever he was ending. And so there's this spiritual connection. It's a group thing. Everyone's in it. But the physiology of a minotaur is different than the physiology of a gnome. And so these chemicals caused Occam to go to what would be now described as, this was before Stranger Things, but the Upside Down. So he was in this world that was filled with demons and filled with things out to get him. And for the 20 minutes that he was under the influence, it felt like he had been gone for a month to him, and he was being pursued and tormented and haunted, and he was running and hiding from these demons that just would look like they could just rip him asunder. He was sort of a shade, and he comes back and is forever changed by this experience. Very, very, dead in the eyes and gaunt, and very not excited when people told him, "Oh, you've been out for 20 minutes." How was the experience for you?
And he wants to. It's everything in him to stop from killing people at that point, which is not in his nature.
That's right, exactly. He was very much haunted by his time in the Upside Down. In the middle place. In the middle place, yeah, that's right. So, only Orla and Enceladus and Occam knew that this was sort of a cover to smuggle Syrah out of danger. And so as they all kind of were coming down the mountain, they made it back to Orla's house, and I think Orla checked the binding that Sierra did on Murtali's true, cavern workshop, not his little one out back. And then she, in a moment sort of I don't know whether it was haste or whether it was just raw emotion, she actually lit her own house on fire to burn it to the ground before the Miners Guild could, and just went ahead and took that into her own hands. And there was a scene of the three of them walking away from her burning childhood, and her just having tears streaming down her eyes or her face, and just realizing that everything has changed forever.
Sierra did that, or Orla?
Orla did. Sierra was able to slip out in the middle of the sending and not be seen.
And Sierra, again, sorry, was Orla's. It wasn't her relative.
It was her aunt.
Her aunt. Okay, thank you. Her aunt.
Yes, but it wasn't told at that point who the uncle was, who any none of the other bits that we have discovered.
We know now.
We don't know. Yeah, right.
We're building the family tree here.
Starting in the very beginning, building the family tree. So then, the group is kind of they're trying to catch a train out of there. Oh no, I think they go to a shop. You guys remember going to a shop and getting some information on what to do next?
Yeah, well, I remember going to the train station. Was it like a shop in the train station area or something?
Yeah, so before
Station.
What?
Before that, they went to another one of Orla's relatives who had a shop in the merchant district in Zolenberg. The shop's owner was named Goal. I don't know if you guys remember that. You guys got some magic items from him because he basically said, "We need to get you out of here." You got some repulsion armor, which Orla put on. A war axe called Flesh Seeker, which Occam got. The Parapat of Health, which was a necklace that Enceladus had.
Oh, yeah.
And a Giant Slayer greatsword, which is not one that either any of you could use, but you were given it anyway. Do you guys remember that?
I remember that Parapat of Health.
Yeah. So those were the first magic items that you guys received. And Goal basically said, like, he was a family friend. He was someone that Orla really was close to. He taught her a lot. And so he gave her a bunch of stuff. And he also gave her a letter that was written by her father on what to do next.
I remember
you guys
that.
remember that? That's right. And so let's see here. It was her cousin, Golembor Lintal, and that was Decivis, and he's a dealer of rare antiquities. So Orla read this letter, and her response was, "The less I tell you, the better off you are. I need to head northeast." And she said, "Honestly, I don't exactly know what I'm looking for or where I will find it, but I don't want to go alone. I know where to start. I just don't know where it will end or how much trouble we'll face. The gifts my father gave you are free and clear. No expectations. You can leave now, and I won't hold it against you." And I know you guys made the decision to go with her, because again, what else would you do? I did have a lot of other things. There were a lot of other things planned for you if you decided, because I was a paranoid DM back then. And
It's like we do that hard.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to go with me, but
Yeah, Orla, best of luck.
for sure. Anyway, so from Goal's shop, you guys were headed towards the lightning rail station, and guards and Miners Guild guys kept kind of like, you know, tracing you and like following you, and then if you can remember this encounter, you got to the train station and you were going to buy a ticket, and you're at the ticket booth, and they refused to sell you a ticket. And I don't know if Occam, you large Oxman, you remember what you actually did.
Something incredibly stupid.
Yes.
Brought unnecessary attention, pissed off the Miners Guild, and caused us to be on the run. And if I remember correctly, did Orla get on the train and I failed to get on the train? Is that what happened?
So
That's
Orla and Enceladus were able to make it jump on the train as it was pulling out of the station, and you missed. And I made it so that it was a roll, like, you know, an ability check to get on the train, and you missed it. And that was the first time that the party was split ever.
Oh boy.
Be the last time.
It wouldn't be the last time.
No.
But so Orla and Enceladus made it on the train, albeit illegally. They didn't have you know, proper fare. They did make it on the train, and Occam was captured, and he was brought down into a holding cell. And who else was in one of the other holding cells?
I think that's when we met our new friend Tamriel.
That's right. And
That's right.
you, Joe, will you introduce?
Yeah,
Tamriel?
actually, I think so. I had met you gentlemen, and you had kind of told me about this cult that you, or this game that you guys were had been playing. And really, I didn't know anything about D&D other than, like, I didn't realize there was a board and figures, or there could be. I thought it was all make believe in your mind. So I didn't really know what to expect when I showed up with you guys. But thank you all these years later. Thanks for inviting me. It's been fun. So yeah, I think you created Tam for somebody else, actually.
Yeah, for actually the name Tam was Matt spelled backwards.
Right, exactly.
And
And so I got this character, and there was no backstory or anything, which is kind of fun, because then I just got to make it up as I learned about the world, because I didn't know anything about D&D. I didn't know anything about Eberron.
yes.
And after the first night playing, I was like, yes, this is great. And I learned as much as I could about the world, and kind of made up a character. And just like the DM, like, learned a lot about making characters along the way, and what it's like to play the game. So anyway, Tam was an Eladrin ranger. And the Eladrin were in Eberron, kind of a part of a different world. There was these towers that were not native to Eberron, but were native to a different plane, Thelanis, the Feywild, which is what I learned. And so he was kind of a man, a creature, trapped in a place that wasn't his home. And pretty much met these guys in a jail cell, and it just got worse from there.
I just went downhill. Yeah,
Should have stayed.
right. So
No, it was great.
so Occam was very much locked up, and so was Tam. And Tam, at one point, you know, Joe asked me, why in the world is Tam locked up? Because he could have picked this lock a long time ago. I didn't have a good answer for him. We just sort of assumed that the lock he was behind was pretty
The
important.
story I made up because after I read about the character a little bit, I thought, oh man, Eladrin can actually teleport.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in this jail cell. I can just escape. So the story I made up was that I had seen these guys and I was like, oh, they can help me. I want to know these guys. So I allowed myself to get caught and be put in jail.
Yep.
And joined your group.
So
I don't know.
So we the first time we had split the party, I had to swap back and forth between the two groups, and we ended up catching up with Enceladus and Orla, and they both decided to jump the train and come back for Occam, and so they made their way back, sort of avoiding the search party that was kind of going out after them. They made it down into the dungeon, and I think. I'm trying to remember who broke whom out of which cell. I think at that point I let Tam roll for a stealth check or a thievery check or something like that. And he was able to unlock his door, and then he was able to unlock Occam's door, and then at that point, Enceladus and Orla had come through and said, "Oh, you're here, and who's this?" And so the 3 became 4 at that point. And you kind of fought your way out. I remember that was the time when I had made a 3-dimensional map of a canyon with a lightning rail, sort of like, course. And you guys kind of made your way through with the Miners Guild on your heels, with a couple like guys with shovels and guys with picks and one, mountain troll. And the mountain troll was throwing rocks at you, and you eventually kind of, escaped. And you did make it onto another train. Yeah. You jumped onto another train, and this time all of you made it. Unlike the very first time. And that was another tense point because it was the same circumstances. Everyone had to make some sort of athletics check to jump onto the train, and everyone made it. And there were like these pillars that you guys had to get up on top of and jump on top of the train. And then the 4 of you, Orla kind of downloaded the sort of the mission on a very light level to Tam, and he said, "Yeah, whatever. I just maybe you can help me, but I'm in for this." And so Joe joined our group, and we continued on from there.
The thing I remember about that first night was, again, I had never played any role-playing game or anything before. But we were on the train, the lightning rail, and we decided to play a card game. And so we busted out some gold coins that we had at the table and cards, and we were playing this card game, just the 4 characters. And kind of learning about each other while Orla was sharing the story, and I was learning about Eberron, the player Joe was. And there was like music playing in the background, and I was role playing, and there was a song, and I said, "Oh, this song played at my cousin's wedding," and I was role playing Tam, and I can't remember who it was, but they thought that Joe, the person, was saying that song was. Anyway. I was in character, embracing it, and I didn't know if that was right or wrong or what, but I just jumped fully into the role right away. And
Love it. That's so great. And that was something that the card game and the gambling we haven't done since, but I remember that being really fun. We actually played with real fake gold pieces and actual cards. We gambled together, the 4 of us, the 4 characters in character on the train. And I remember that being a real fun moment.
Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to do again, but then there's always so much other great role play stuff going on that I never want to I just want to do what we're doing.
You don't want to hijack it.
We will have to bust out the cards and the gold again at some point because I love gold.
When we're all together again in person, I can for sure bring the gold, and I can bring the card games, and we We can for sure
Nice.
gamble as character. I'll have to assume an NPC, but we will very much gamble
Nice.
as a group again. So Orla is sort of keeping secret where you're going and why you're going where you're going, and you all are just sort of like, hey, what we can help. We'll just be on board. If we can go back to the map,
Sure thing, boss. Give me a second here.
no problem.
All right, map is live.
So from Zolenberg, the Orla was guiding everyone, and they were traveling north. You made it to Star Alaska and had to switch trains to get on to a different line, headed towards Vatharond, which is this town right here, right at the edge of the Mournland. And so you guys made it to Vatharond, and I'm trying to remember, I might have it written down. I'm trying to remember if you were somehow you met with the mayor. Do you remember meeting with the mayor? And the mayor said, hey, I'd love to help you, but I have this issue. He sort of gave...
Yeah. Was this about we had to go, was it in search for his like sons or something like that were werewolves?
His sons were
That's
missing.
later on.
No.
Oh,
later
they
on.
were missing.
No,
His sons were-
this is correct. Wes has it
Really?
right. Yep, Wes has it right.
I don't remember meeting him this early.
I kind of gave away the story.
No, that's totally fine.
But did we turn him down?
Right. You know what? I'm sorry. It is later. You're totally right. You guys.
The thing I remember about Vatharond, I don't remember stopping there, but I remember riding towards the Mournland.
Yeah.
And the lightning rail somehow, I think we were being pursued, and the lightning rail got hijacked somehow.
That's right.
And we hurtled out of control
Yeah.
into the
Right.
Mournland.
Yeah.
Right.
The lightning
Yeah,
rail has a tendency of getting hijacked for some reason. I don't know.
So I think now I remember the train was supposed to stop at Vatharond, but the one you were on continued through. It just sped right through the station, and it hurtled towards this wall of great gray mist, which is if you look at the map,
Let me
it's
switch over to the map again.
right on the edge of Mournland, and you can see that the orange line stops just as you get into the edge of the Mournland, like right at that point right there. And so the train truly was supposed to stop at Vatharond, but for some reason it was hijacked, and it was hurtling towards this wall of dark misty cloud. And you guys kind of, the train went off a broken track off of the edge of a cliff and just kind of piled on top of each other. And then you guys were in the great gray mist, which it is an environmental issue. If you're not acclimated, you become disoriented quite easily. And so I had an encounter, sort of a puzzle encounter on some level, where the adventurers were rolling to they didn't know what they were rolling against, but it really was confusion. And so there was a way out of this great gray mist, and they had to continue to roll, and each number on the roll would correspond with a different direction. And they were having to they lost their direction several different times, and eventually found their way out of the mist into the Mournland itself, which is utter desolation. Everything is gray or brown of some sorts and dead. There are animated dead things.
It's like,
Yes.
yeah, the spectrals in the mist that would kind of come out and
Right.
attack us. They couldn't. They're too far away from the mist, as I recall.
Yeah.
With a certain distance, but I remember that they caused bunch of issues.
So
Now,
the thing,
at this point, I think that there's a character that is a side character, but eventually becomes more important that we haven't introduced. At one point did Silverbell become a part?
That is a good question. I think wasn't it earlier on? It was like a tower. There was a tower involved, right?
no, oh yes. Okay, so there were three encounters before the main proper story went along, and I appreciate you bringing that up because you're totally right. One of the three encounters that Orla and Enceladus and Occam came across before Orla received the letter from the courier and before Murtali's sending, there was a tower that these adventurers happened upon, and there was a knight standing at the top of the tower, fully clad, and he challenged any passerby to a fight. And if they could beat them, he would give them something really special. And so, of course, these three adventurers were like, "Well, we're not going to pass up this fight." And so they ended up beating this this fully clad knight. And he told them, he said, "Well, I'm really like, I don't know, what do you call it? I'm really a
lich.
A lich.
A lich, yeah.
And you because you've entertained me, you've bested me, I will give you my phylactery, and you can call me whenever you need me."
The Horcrux.
Yeah, right. And so he gave them a small silver bell about this big, and when it was rung, it sounded like a giant church bell. And he would show up and say, "What's going on? Who can I fight for you?" He just was bored and wanted an adventure. And the reason why I did that mechanically is because running an adventure with three characters can be a little bit difficult. We did not have a really good tank. The cleric played two roles, a healer and a tank. And the bard was someone who could buff people and get people kind of resistant to damage or have extra damage. And the warlock could fire, could rain the torment of hell from afar onto whomever. But we didn't truly have a paladin, and so Silver, like, you guys have never asked his name, never did, but you called him Silver Bell because of his.
I thought we did
bell.
ask his name, but he wouldn't give it to us for some reason, so we decided to call him Silver Bell.
That sounds about right.
It's a very clever DMing tool. I appreciate it. Good job.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It was needed. I think because of some of the things we had encountered, I thought, there's probably a need for this.
These
And
guys are gonna die.
Well, I also wasn't really confident with my skill in balancing an encounter very well, and so if they needed it, they had the ability to have. And I had created this paladin to be a little bit overpowered, to be the point where he hit hard and he was very durable, and so it was sort of like a Hail Mary, so I didn't have to kill any characters in the beginning, because I was pretty paranoid about that in the beginning.
It also sounds to me like those players in the beginning thought the answer to every question was yes. Yeah. You want to fight me? Well, yes. That's yes.
For sure.
You want to
we
do
were
this?
learning how to roleplay.
Yes.
I guess maybe they didn't want to challenge their new DM. Maybe they're just being kind. I don't know. I mean, that's
also eager. This is
right.
getting close to the time when I joined.
Yes. Yeah, we're very close. So thank you, Jake. That's a reminder that Silver Bell did come into play. I don't remember if you guys had called him before that point. I think in the Mournland was the first time, or no, he I think in the Mournland was the first time that you rang the bell.
That sounds right. And we remembered that. Wait a minute. Yeah, I think we were in some kind of a bad encounter where it looked like it wasn't going well, and one of us remembered, oh wait, we have a silver bell. Let's ring it.
So Orla was kind of directing you towards Eston, like this old city that had been destroyed by the morning, the big explosion that ended the Great War.
I'm gonna pull the map up again. You can go
Okay.
ahead and show them Eston.
Absolutely. Eston is, and anything that is a square with a slash through it is a ruin. And anything in the Mournland is completely ruined because of the explosion. But Eston is right here. It's sort of, not too terribly far from where they crashed, which was down here just out of Vatharond. But Eston was a place of interest that Orla was definitely taking people toward. So I'm trying to remember the order of events. At the gates of Eston, there was an encounter with some Warforged. And some of the Warforged, it was a Warforged priest that was, shooting, like balls of arcane, energy at you guys. And Orla got hit. All of the arcane magic users, which was Orla and Enceladus, if they
right.
got hit or were in a zone, they were either overpowered or completely weakened, like totally taken out by these energy sort of like sinks.
Now, if I recall,
Raiders
this was the first first session that I joined. And the Warforged was in a crater, I believe.
Yes.
The
He
Warforged
was-
enemy.
The Warforged priest, yeah.
Yeah,
We
glowing
didn't
with purple
encounter
arcane energy. A
Yep.
cool mini.
Right.
Except it
until
wasn't
a
a mini.
little
It
bit
was
later once we're
It was a terrain
inside the
Yeah.
forge. But yeah, the terrain piece was rad.
And I think it was if you guys moved in close to the terrain piece or something, like it caused the arcane magic users to have issues, to be either overcharged or to fall, like to wilt and fall over. And Orla became really weak. Like she was really affected by, because she went up close. So at one point she got close to one of these priests to try to make a melee attack, and she kind of like was drained and fell over. And I'm trying to remember, I think eventually you guys cleared everyone out of that area. And then did you rest? I think, was there a time of sleeping, or there was a time of like getting Orla to a shelter or a safe spot?
Yeah, I believe they found some ruins.
At the
and
edge,
then
at the entrance. Yep.
Yeah, they found some ruins and were resting, but Orla had not come to all the way yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was the first point when you guys decided to like go out and explore, and all of your eyes were off of Orla. She was in a spot where no one could see
Yeah.
her.
We thought it would be safe to just leave her for just a moment.
Now, if
No,
I
he's
recall,
He's resting.
there was a man that you saw in the ruins that was sneaking and running by, and you guys decided to follow him.
Yes.
He had a sack full of treasure.
I think, we
did.
would have
He's
been
totally
doing that
right.
something.
He had a sack full of something, and you guys were running after him. And all of you decided to take off after this guy. And when you came back, Orla was gone. She disappeared.
Okay, now let's mark here for a second. What year was it that this session happened?
So we started in March of 15. I want to say that was probably the end of that year. So 2015.
The first date that I have written down, which is the second page, I had been taking some notes a few sessions before this, but the first date I have written down is February 1st of 2016.
Okay. So.
And that was inside of Eston.
Okay.
Past the gate.
So it probably was right around between 15 and 16, like the winter of 15. And so Jake, you were an observer at that point.
Yeah.
What were you
so,
doing for all those months?
So what happened was Joe and I were doing a public outreach, and we were cleaning this man's apartment. We were supposed to be spending time with him, but unfortunately there was a Packers game on, and then Joe found out that I liked D&D, and suddenly that guy didn't exist anymore. We were still cleaning his apartment, which I'm sure he was thankful of, but Joe and I ended up talking about D&D so much that he kind of spaced us out. And then the following week, I decided that I wanted to come and sit down and watch you guys' campaign. And after that first session, I made my character, and then it was kind of up to you guys to find him.
Yes.
So
See that
after that
right
first
there in the
session,
corner?
my character was in existence, but unfound.
That has a fan setting.
Isn't it funny? We've got to find you again.
This
Yeah.
whole campaign should be called The Search for Spoiler.
The search for Celestine.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're doing right now.
So when we first approached Eston, I was also really impressed because there was this big gate, a huge door, and Justin had molded this or found this like I don't know, it was like this big, and it had all these this crazy artwork on it. It was like a mold or something, but it actually functioned as like the gate to this forge, and we had to take on these kobolds, end up like kind of like bargaining with them to get this huge key, like a big huge
yeah,
key.
I remember
That was
that.
the
The
key
key was
to
like a bat.
Yeah, it was.
They were lizard men.
Yeah, kobolds, I think. Anyway,
Okay.
the door key weighed 53 pounds,
Yes.
and there used to be a picture of it, which
Yep.
I haven't been able to find. But
Did I draw that picture or did you draw the picture?
you drew it.
Oh yeah, I guess I did.
Oh yeah,
don't
I remember
what-
that. You just pulled it out, and you're like, "This is what the key looks like."
You know what? I have it somewhere. We'll take a picture of it and we'll post it so that it can be seen. I did draw a picture of the key because I thought it would be a fun idea to have an enemy that had a giant club that was also the key to the door that he was guarding, and would be difficult for someone to figure that out. But you guys figured it out pretty quick. So maybe because I said it looks like a key, that's probably why you figured it out. But anyway.
I tried to trade the kobold a little trinket for it, and he stole my trinket. Dang
Right.
it.
That's right.
Oh, just a quick plug. This is going to be uploaded to YouTube, but we also have a website that we are working on that has information about this campaign. And I think it might be a good idea for us to start collecting some of the artifacts that we've been using. And have an artifacts page, in which case we will actually have a picture of the club and any of the miniatures that we've used that have been important
Yes.
throughout this campaign. So
That's
if
a
you
great
look on
idea.
our Twitch page in the next couple of days, you should be able to find a link to our website and get more information about the campaign.
Have you guys been working on it? No. But we will. Okay. So, but to back up a little bit, as soon as Orla was gone, you guys tracked her. I mean, you tracked the people that are the footprints,
Brown footprints.
and they were headed back towards the broken train to the south.
Mhm.
And at some point, what made you decide to go back to Eston?
Well, she had, at this point, they had told us there was kind of an information dump about this race, which we haven't talked about yet at all.
Right.
And I could let the DM go ahead and introduce them, but it became clear that Orla had been kidnapped by this race.
Do you remember?
We found that out because we came across Orla had left a shell or something like that, and attached a ghost sound, a message to it, and the message was like, "Hey, I've been taken by these guys. Go back to Eston." And we said, "Heck no, we're gonna rescue you."
Right.
And then we kept on, and then later on we found another message that was like,
what did I tell you?
guys,
Seriously,
really,
me.
Right.
Go back to Eston.
Go back to Eston. That's where the hook is, or
So-
whatever.
So that honestly was a desperate DM's attempt to like turn you back to the thing that I had planned and only planned. And
Our,
I thought it was
so
pretty
our
good. I
loyalty
mean,
to our friend.
Yeah.
you know, if you think of, you know, House Civis, they work with information. They work with things called speaking stones. They work with the ability to send messages across magic, you know, magical connections.
Yeah.
I felt like it fit with the template of, you know, her house, of her abilities, and, you know, like it also was a great way to get you guys to go back to the thing that I actually designed rather than to follow her, because I wasn't expecting you to. I mean, I guess I was expecting you to follow her, but again, it's, you know, a not mature DM who didn't understand, you know, hooks and options and potentials. So
But it, as a side note, what it also taught me later on was, because you had described it as this certain spell, and then later on when I started DMing, I went, "Oh, that's not what that spell does." But I realized, like, the DM doesn't always have to follow the exact letter of the
Exactly right.
rules. It's your world,
Right.
and you can do whatever you want and make it work. And
Right.
you do that really well. And anyway, that was cool.
Yeah. So you guys took her advice and you went back to Eston and investigated. And the first thing that you ran into were these guards that had this giant key for the door. I took all of the following adventures in Eston from the actual supplement called the Forbidden Forge. And that is an actual published adventure that is perfectly free, that anyone can grab, called the Forbidden Forge. And I adapted it to this town, or the city, this destroyed city of Eston. And adventure ensued. A full-on investigation of the entire forge happened. A curiously alive warforged that was found in a rubbish bin became a character in the story. And Jake, maybe you can give a little bit of explanation in that.
So, what actually happened was they were fighting. They were fighting a man, but that had an energy field. If I recall, there was an environmental hazard. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, there was like an arcane generator.
Yeah, you guys were
Oh.
fighting some sort of artificer, and there was an arcane generator.
Yeah.
And you guys either destroyed the generator or, well, you definitely defeated him. But something happened with the generator and sent out this enormous shockwave. In which case you guys were walking by a pile of scraps and found a warforged paladin named Celestine. So Celestine, you know, I went into this campaign not knowing a lot about 4th edition, but knowing quite a bit about Dungeons and Dragons in general, having played it 3.5 edition and lots of different video games since I was like 10. But knew hardly anything about this campaign. Was more into the combat as opposed to character building. Anytime there was you know, dialogue or anything, just like hold down the space bar. And so I figured this would be a good starting point for me to make a character that does not actually have a backstory. So I like the idea of learning how to roleplay and make a backstory on the fly, as well as having all of the mechanics and something, you know, that would kind of get me going as far as having a fun character to play. And I knew that they needed a tank role. And so going into the first, you know, the first session that I went to, I knew they didn't have a tank. And so I asked Justin, hey, can I make a tank? I love playing tanks. So I made Celestine the Paladin, in which case he started just coming along with you guys and learning from you and sort of coming into his own in the Forge in Eston.
Mm-hmm. And the Forge in Eston is unique. After the Great War, all of the House Cannith is one of the 12 major houses, and they are very mechanically inclined. They make all of the gadgets and gizmos, and also they invented these I don't want to say robot because they're not robot, because they actually are sentient. They are these beings that are magical and mechanical, and they're called Warforged, and they're unique to Eberron. And if you look at just about any modern D&D like
synthetics,
sort of, yeah, I guess sort of like synthetics. You can play a Warforged in 5th edition, but not many people know exactly where the Warforged originated, and it is very much in Eberron. They have this interesting role where they were used. They were created for war, and they were used as slaves on some level from the different houses that bought them from House Cannith to fight against each other. And as soon as the Great War was over and the Treaty of Thronehold was signed, these Warforged essentially became free agents. They became, free beings. And so all of the forges were officially legally shut down. You could not make any more Warforged. There were Warforged Titans, which are these giant Goliaths of war that had, several blades for hands and all these things. And it became illegal with the Treaty of Thronehold to make a Warforged ever again. And to see a working forge was a little bit of a surprise to the adventuring party. But also the thing that they noticed was these Warforged did not look like the Warforged they had seen in the Great War. They were very unique. Also, a Warforged paladin is a very unique thing because a paladin requires a deity, and the Warforged did not have access or belief in a deity. They were simply tools of war, and did not have the components to reach out to a god and have a patron. So to introduce a character that was a Warforged paladin was sort of a risky endeavor, but it fit the story. All of the enemies that they encountered in this forge were very different. They were very unique, and most of them were created by the forge, and they all had a very different look to them. And so there was a suspicion of who was creating and how these were being created. They did not look like they were anything from this plane. They didn't look like they were House Cannith or from Eberron. And as the adventurers continued through this labyrinth, they found a revenant dwarf that was the artificer behind the creation of these monstrosities. And I'm trying to remember exactly how Rook became a part of the party. Does anyone remember?
So we were actually fighting. We were fighting Rook.
You were fighting Rook.
Yeah.
And we were getting it handed to us, essentially. Because there were also... what were the monsters that were with him?
Yeah, they were just giant Warforged robots. I mean, they were just very unique, like sentient, these synthetic sentient beings.
So we were having a really hard time with this encounter. Silverbell was there, Celestine was now there. You had 2 tanks, and we were having quite the time. At which point, the other Jake that we call Jacob, he is not here with us right now. He was kind of in the same spot that I was. He was coming to hang out and, just playing whoever's character was missing and just getting the feel for D&D. Jake Warren, or I guess just Jacob as we call him. He had never played D&D before, so he was just kind of, what's this all about? And, figuring it out and just hanging out with some guy friends. And at which point... we were about to... There were some people that were in the dying condition, and Rook finally snapped out of it and told it and screamed stop. In which case we found that his name was Rook, and we started learning about who he was. And at which point, I'm not sure if Jacob knew this or not, but all of a sudden Justin was like, and this is Jacob's character.
Yes. That was a fun reveal. That was good. I like that one.
So before we met him, though, as we were going through the forge, there was kind of a couple important names that we missed. We met in the forge Hestus de Canith, who was actually dead. He was like a ghost or a wraith or something like that.
Yep.
And he had been running the forge before the day of mourning, I think.
Yes.
But he referred to someone called Kalamachia. And he told us that Kalamachia was the heart of the forge. And she was creating something called Forge Drakes. And so we had been we weren't sure what that was as we were fighting Rook. Anyway, that was part of it. And then we never got to that other plane and the race of creatures. I don't know.
Not quite yet. It was not quite introduced yet.
Okay.
There is a little bit that was in Murtali's journal, and actually, the thing that you actually at this point cracked his journal. You actually opened it up and were trying to figure out what in the world are we doing here. And so, I told you that because obviously I had not written his entire journal. So what I told you is you skimmed the journal, and these are the things that you came up with. One was that you were looking for 3 dwarves. You're looking for 3 dwarves that were archaeologists, and they were investigating the forge at Eston. And it was not as certain that whether Murtali was the one that actually sent them in that direction or not, but they were also to investigate the potential of another race of humanoids who called themselves the Sorani. And so that's what you got from the journal. And so you're trying to investigate the dwarves. And as you're entering the Forbidden Forge, there was one approach that went through sort of like a waterfall sort of cavern, and you saw a dead dwarf at the bottom of the cavern who had a backpack on. And you sort of determined that was one of the 3 dwarves that were sent to investigate the forge at Eston before you. And
learn how to loot a body.
And learned how to loot a body for the first time.
We took his stuff.
Yeah, you took his stuff. And he didn't have very much, but you took his stuff.
There was a journal in Dwarvish there.
That's right.
Which was kind of like, that was kind of the tip off that.
This is for sure. Right. And then in sort of interrogating Rook a little bit, you sort of maybe figured out that he was one of the other dwarves, but his memory had been completely erased. So he doesn't remember dying, and he doesn't remember being resurrected again as a revenant, but he obviously has, white ashen or gray ashen skin. He doesn't bleed. He has a couple other things that the race of revenants allows, but he is this undead dwarf of sorts.
Kind of smells like mothballs.
Smells a little bit like medicine, but you're not really sure why. Like
kind of a tangy taste,
like formaldehyde. If you suck on his finger, it's a little salty. Anyway, tangy, salty.
Not the nostrils.
Not the good kind of salty. You make your way deeper into the forge, and you eventually get to the actual forge itself. And the forge has not been started up, but there is another dwarf that you come across, and his name is Bane. Do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember Bane.
And he was a little bit more off his nut and was sending these mechanical serpents after you, and was kind of jumping around his own library between his books. And eventually you kind of reason with him, and I don't remember whether he takes off or whether he dies.
Bane dies.
Bane dies. Okay.
He goes through a similar process as Rook,
where
however,
wakes
he does not recover.
Yes, that's right. And you realize that he is the third of the 3 that were sent to Eston to investigate. and he as well was killed and resurrected and became an artificer, making this new form of Warforged. And at that point, you encounter Kalmachia, who is this giant silver dragon, in the forge proper. And you have encountered the drakes that have been created, and they are horrifying. And they fly, and they are really difficult to kill. And you guys are very surprised by how overpowered the enemies your DM is throwing at you are, and some of you have doubts whether you'll make it out alive. I think that's how it went. Maybe you can enlighten me a little bit more about that.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember before we got to that place, there was a big room full of booby traps that was set, that was, decimate us, and we just had the luckiest amount of rolls getting into a closet, pulling on some ropes that we thought, oh, what are these? And it happened to completely disarm this booby-trapped room, which we only figured out once we went through it.
The great part about it is that Rook was able to conveniently remember things when he needed to get us out of trouble.
Yes.
Heading into the forge. I do remember that part.
Another great way by the DM to get you out of spots so I don't have to kill you. Again, I was very paranoid of killing my my party, so trying really hard to give everyone outs and suddenly discover knowledge that they thought that they lost. So
so I will have to go AFK for just a moment here, but I will be back.
Okay. So you guys made it through the booby traps. You made it through the several different stages of the forge, and finally you face Kalmachia herself. And does anyone remember kind of her demeanor and her situation, and what's actually going on there?
Yeah, well, Kalmachia, I remember, was a silver dragon, right?
Yep.
And we get there, and she is in chains, right?
Yep.
And there was eggs involved, right? Like dragon eggs. Was she trying to protect them or something like that? And
she was attached to chains that went through a portal.
Yes.
And on the other side of the portal was this really snowy world that looked completely bleak.
Yeah.
There were these blue humanoid things in that world that were, in charge of the chains on that end of, the portal. And so it was all kind of shocking to see all of it. But yeah, Wesley, you're right. She was protecting some eggs.
Yeah.
And there seemed to be this choice of, are we going to dragon and try and kill it? It's all chained up. And somehow, and I can't remember who, someone thought it'd be a great idea. You know what? No, she's protecting eggs. It's a mother. Probably, a slave chained up. Let's set the dragon free and see what happens.
Well, were we able to communicate directly with the dragon though? Like, I feel like
yeah, we were, in fact, because, well, number one, we had decided we weren't going to try to let her escape, but some of us wanted to kill her. So there was a fight where some of us were trying to kill her, and other people were trying to free her. But we were able to talk to her, and she talked with us about a very important thing that Celestine was asking her about, which was about this one true creator.
Yes.
Which I should probably have Jake talk more about why that was important.
Yeah. And we will when he gets back.
Right.
I do remember that Occam was the one that decided to target her neck binding rather than the dragon herself. I'm pretty sure that Occam was the one that decided to do that. So.
That sounds right, because it would be within Occam's personality to look for something like that, instead of an enemy, perhaps as someone who's misunderstood. That was usually his method.
Yeah, right.
I have written down, Enceladus misses the eggs. So at some point we saw the eggs, and Enceladus was trying to smash the eggs. And Kalmachia says, "Why would you try to destroy my creation? The only thing in the room that is truly free."
I was trying to kill the eggs.
Yeah.
The only thing without reproach, she says.
I don't remember doing that. That sounds like something I would do.
Journal don't lie, brah.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Celestine's trying to talk. Occam's looking around at the ice and chains. Rook's trying to hit her. Tam's trying to hit her and the eggs. Solidus is trying to hit the eggs. We were a very unified group.
I know.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We were not working as a team at
I mean,
all.
we thought that Kalamachia was the enemy, but then we realized that Kalamachia's prisoner, like in the middle of it, yeah. So we had to make some decisions on the fly, change our approach, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, Celestine scored a crit and knocked the chains free.
Yeah, and so do you guys remember what she did? As soon as the chains were knocked free,
Yeah.
she went vertical and then went down, grabbed her eggs, and then flew up and out of the forge itself.
Never to be seen again.
Yes, she did not go back through the portal. She went out into Eberron. So that was sort of
the chains binding her were withdrawn back into the portal, and then the portal collapses.
Yep, exactly. So the heroes are left with freeing Silver Dragon and her eggs into Eberron, a forge that's now officially shut down, and they found a treasure room off to the side. And this treasure room was probably one of my greatest follies in the adventure so far, because I gave away some incredibly powerful weapons, which is fine. It's fine. It was still I was still young in the world, and so I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, you gave away a couple of useful items that were fun, and some that were moderately powerful, and then some that were.
I'm gonna list what I gave, so that we can not moderately, very powerful, like not moderately powerful. It was game-changingly powerful. I think is how I experienced them as the.
But not all for the better.
Right. Right. Okay. So yes. So some of the novel things that I gave away were the Onyx Steed. That was a beautiful gift that Occam decided to take. It was this little onyx stone horse. And at any point, if you need something to ride, the steed will turn, like the little figurine will turn into an actual steed, a celestial charger. And this piece became very, very pivotal in a battle later on. And it was very beautiful scene. But it was a cool thing because all of a sudden Occam had something he could ride that was an official steed that no one else had.
On land, never get tired, and over water, as if
And
you were
over
running.
water. Yep. Yeah, there was no difficult terrain while riding the steed. It could show up whenever you wanted to and disappear whenever you wanted to. That was the beautiful gift right there. That was wonderful. There was a little puppet that Rook got that would kind of walk around at your command and look like this little weird little voodoo demon doll that kind of wandered around. And as soon as you said in Elven stop, then the puppet would just kind of fall over and you could pick it up again and put it away. There was a whistle that was identified as a Tuathan road whistle. And it's something that if you blew it and you had a place in mind, a very faintly glowing path would appear on the ground in the direction of you needed to go to get to that place that you had in mind. That's a fairly powerful item that you guys have used on several occasions to
Do we still have it?
Yeah, you do. I don't know where it went. I mean, I think you still have it. I don't know who has it, but
Solidus has it.
Enceladus has.
I do have it.
I think Enceladus has it.
Tam gave it.
It's in my stuff.
There was also, was this when you got the piece of chalk? There's a chalk that you
No,
could.
we found the chalk. We traded Orla for the chalk.
That's right.
We
That's
were
totally
busy opening pickle crates when we found the chalk and lost Orla.
Yep. Yeah.
What I have written down is 14,500 pieces of gold.
Yes.
I
You had
remember spending that.
a lot of gold to.
I don't remember spending it, so I'm going to write it down under my inventory, if that's okay.
You know what we'll do? We'll track it through the story and see actually where it went.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll make sure that the books are reconciled. There was a very powerful blade that that Celestine got, and it was this this ice blade that was really incredibly powerful. It had an amazing crit number to it, and it was able to deliver very like cold blasts and things like that and freeze things in place. And then there was a special bow that Tam got.
Shard.
Yep, it's called Shard. And as the bow was drawn back, a crystalline arrow would just sort of materialize, and you'd be able to shoot it. And it had a high crit potential too, and did a lot of really cool things. So
The thing that made it broken was it would slow enemies,
yes,
which meant that they could only move 2 squares, which just-
Tam could just stand back and slow every single enemy. Which I mean, I could have probably worked around it, but that was a thing that I didn't have forethought on.
So I'm looking at the list: gold, marionette, horse, shard, whistle, and then rod.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was saving the best for last. There was this rod that seemed to fit everything about Enceladus, Wes's
Right.
character. It actually seemed to call to Wes without actually ever having, spoken any words. It just somehow just ended up in his hand. Similar to the One Ring, it just appeared and became a part of Enceladus's character. And it was very, very soon recognized that this rod had a mind of its own, and it was nicknamed the Rod of Chaos. And whenever the user would cast a daily spell, which is one of the heavier hitting, bigger one time a day spells in the spell books of casters or magic people, the rod itself would become sentient and have a mind of its own. And so Wes, as a player, would have to roll a D100, 100-sided dice,
As I
and
can see
it's right there. And
that's a little bit.
I lovingly wrote 100 consequences of this rod.
That was a lot of work. A lot of work to put into that.
And I split up the consequences to be 1/3 positive, adding to the benefits of this role or this encounter. I wrote 1/3 of them to be truly neutral, to not have any other effect other than entertainment. And I wrote 1/3 of these effects, of these 100 effects, to be detrimental, to take away or add power to the enemy, or to lay difficulty on the encounter for everyone involved. Now it wasn't truly 1/3, because I did 30% of positive, neutral, and negative, and then I reserved the last 10% of these 100 potentials to be truly life-changing. I called them catastrophic, because whether or not they were benefits or they were detriments or neutral, they changed the life of the user and the people around the user forever.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember, but I think that particular 10% went off 4 different times the first round.
I could probably
I-
guess a couple.
Not the first round, but the first list.
I just decided I'm going to go through the journal and make a list of all the incidences of everything. So I have a record. When I kept a record, I recorded that as one of
So
the things.
I can do one better because
Oh.
I took inventory of all the ones that were
Oh,
used.
nice.
I think I have. Actually, unfortunately, I have the second list. So I don't know why I wrote a second list.
But then we get the rod back.
Well, there was
Rod
a time when the rod got some sort of upgrade.
Oh yeah, that the bone got fastened to it later.
Oh, that's right. So the rod has metamorphosized. Is that a word? Throughout the course of the adventure, and every time it has changed form, I've written a new 100-point list. So,
It's really crazy how many times some of those things happen then before
it
you
is.
rewrote the list.
So Joe, I guess I don't have the original list. So if you have
Yeah,
sort
I'll go through it and post it.
do you guys remember offhand just some of the original events?
The first roll, we left Eston. We went to Sharn. 2 notes, by the way, about Eston. Hestus de Cannith, we killed
Yes.
him. He died. We
Yep.
took his ring, a
That's
House
right.
Cannith ring.
That is
Bane,
actually
Bane didn't die. We left him alive,
Mhm.
and we left him a note to, I guess I don't know why we left him a note. He was sleeping with a hint to return home. So
Got it.
anyway, but after we left Eston, we encountered a special warforged, and in that fight, Rod of Chaos roll number 28 was our first roll. Warranty expired yesterday, which is a very dramatic. Her necklace, the clasp on it breaks.
That's right.
Kept getting that one a couple of times too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But
You
the
rolled
thing
it
is,
again, and then it would refill itself.
the necklace would repair, right?
Right.
The second thing you rolled was number 24, lend a hand, which is a giant spectral hand that appears and helps you in the fight. And then the third roll ever was number 76, flop. And flop is a giant sand bass flops over a low wall. And there was just a big bass in the middle of the fight that we could cook up and eat later on.
Right. The neutral one that didn't really do anything. Some of the other neutral ones were like, your armor all of a sudden blossomed into a bunch of flowers.
Uh-huh.
I remember flying like with a bunch of like flowers or butterflies or something at some point.
There was a giant mug of ale that just showed up, and
Yeah. I remember that one.
yep,
Big old jug.
those were some of the neutral ones. You also changed gender several times. I'm surprised that you rolled that one multiple times, but
That
you
was
started out.
50. If I rolled a 50, I would change gender. I would like this crystals would like, sort of rise up, and I would like almost like cocoon for like a round or two, and then
That's right.
it would break, like I would burst out of it. I'd be like
No.
different gender. Yeah. Very
Yeah. There are
very-
some catastrophic ones that showed up, and we can go over those when we get to that section. But
mhm.
I think
For reference, this is now August of 2016. So,
so
it's been maybe 6 months or so that Celestine and Rook had been in the party. 6 months of gameplay, probably 2 days of in-game time. So
that's right. As soon as Jake gets back, we'll take inventory. We are barely into the beginning of the story, and we're approaching 9 o'clock. So if we'd like to go, go a little bit longer, that's fine. But I think this will be more like a 2 or 3-parter.
Yeah, we're about 6 pages into my notes, and I have 2 notebooks. So
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
There's
This is like episode 1 of a series.
There's a lot of story in 6 years. I actually was worried that we would run out of material, but now I'm realizing that we absolutely
Lots
will
to
not
talk
run
about.
out of
as
material.
I'm going through the journal, I note these like spots where I have big blank sections where we would go into talking or role play, and there'd be a whole bunch of information. And I'd be like, "Oh, I got to remember that and go back and write it down later." So I'm going to leave a bunch of space. And here, 5 years later, there's still a big thing of space. And I remember thinking, sometimes you'll have a script written out. You know what Kalamachi is going to say sometimes, or you'll know what different people have prepared to say. And so I think, oh, he's got a script. I can go back later and have him tell me what that was and record it.
Right.
But I've never actually gone back to you and done that. I'm sure you probably still have the script somewhere written
I
down,
totally do, for
which was
sure.
actually really helpful. Like that whole first scene with Orla and
Yeah.
Sarah was like,
Yep.
yeah.
I have a lot of that I skipped over because I have so many pages of script that I actually read to these guys in the beginning. But anyway,
It might be interesting to get some, like, have snippets of it posted somewhere where we can refer to the lore.
Yeah, I attempted several different times to sort of just cut and paste and try to put sort of a condensed version, but there's so much there that it's hard to kind of get the highlights.
Right.
In a cut and paste, I almost have to retype it, to kind of just collapse a lot of it. So, anyway, so from Eston, where did you guys how did you know where to go? Do you remember how you knew where to go after Eston?
I mean, I thought that we just went back down south, and then we went through kind of the same way that we came in, through the bathroom.
Yes.
Well, the notebook says we talk and decide to go to
was-
Sharn, and I believe it had something to do with Hestus's ring, because we had the House Cannith ring,
Yep.
and I think we figured there was somebody in Sharn who was part of House Cannith, right?
Yep. Yeah, you found out that it's Merrick's Decanith that you needed to find and look for. Who is the sort of unofficial head guy of House Cannith. In looking deeper, there are actually 3 heads of House Cannith, and they all think that they are the heads of House Cannith. But you just so happen to dial into Merrick's as being the leader. So, but before then, as you make it out of the Great Gray mist, you are
I'm shaking my head because I just read the note about what we encounter.
Yeah, what you encounter and how that goes down. So Jake, if we can reference the map again, if you're prepared. So we've made it out of Eston. You have a ring that you're trying to return to House Cannith to get some information.
Map is live.
You climb back out of the same collapsed hole that you came out of in the Mournland, and you head towards Vathrond, which is the town where the train sped through, and you're wanting to get back. And on some level, you're looking for Orla, and you're looking for Orla in Sharn, but you're also trying to find information from House Cannith about a lot of things, mainly the Forge. And as you enter Vatharond, you sort of look for information, try to figure out how to get through, and you end up talking to the mayor. You remember talking to the mayor?
What I have written down is there's guards at the wall, and the guards say, "We were wanted by the Miners Guild. They're everywhere."
Yes.
Yeah, we're always trying to run away from the Miners Guild.
Right.
And we met Eneth Morgan, the mayor's wife,
Yes.
and she's pretty great.
Yes.
And this is where we hear the story about his missing sons, right?
Yes. That's right.
And we need to go looking under the seedy underbelly of Vatron in order to find them, type of thing.
Yes. Right. So he basically
There's
said,
kind of like catacomb beneath the city there that
Yeah.
some werewolves are running, or they're like were-rats or something that are running rampant down there, causing
Yeah.
problems.
Javin Morgan is his name, the mayor, by the way.
yes. Yeah, and it's the sewer. And he sent his sons to go look after the sewer keeper who has been missing, and his sons have not returned. And he asks you, he says, "Hey, I definitely can provide you safe passage to Sharn, but can you do me a favor? I will help you, yes, but I need you to help me with this one issue that I have. My sons are missing."
He sends us with an escort too, doesn't he?
Yes. Well, I don't know if he sends you with an escort yet. I think
Eventually, right?
eventually.
Yeah,
you
right. Right now, it's just go find Tobias and Jake. Tobias and Jace. They've been missing for 6 months,
They have, yeah.
or they went into the sewer 6 months ago.
That's right. And he is very, very afraid that they are dead, but he wants to have confirmation because no one has come back in search parties. So.
And he
Yes.
says, "Oh, and I saw Orla in shackles with the Miners Guild
Right.
going west the day after we crashed in the morning."
Yes. Right.
So we had an Orla sighting, not with the Serrani, but with the Miners Guild.
That's right. That's right. So you guys oblige, and you go down into the sewers, and you are battling were-rats, and you guys have a hard time not getting bitten and not getting moon fever or whatever the disease is.
The greater moon frenzy or lesser moon frenzy.
That's right. Yeah, it is essentially lycanthropy. So you guys are having a hard time not getting bit, but you battle through these were-rats. You eventually get to this main area with it's sort of like a torture chamber, right? And
It's like a German
chamber,
sex
but
dungeon.
It must be correct.
yes, all of those things. There was something about people doing experiments on were creatures, right? Does that ring a
Mhm.
bell? Yes. There were
Yes.
So I'm reading through some of the notes I had written, and here's a few of the notes that I had written down. Number one, he tells us about Merrick's and that people in Sharn, and he says, "If you get to Sharn, do not trust anyone." Also, next note, there's no silver flame in Vatharon. For those who know Eberron lore, the silver flame and were creatures have a big conflict.
yes.
And then he says, "I have one last thing to say. There has been werewolf action." He tells us about his sons, including information about the family medallion, which is a
Mhm.
turtle. And P.S. It's a full moon. All right.
Yep. So
And Silver
so-
Flame is also big, if I recall, in Forgotten Realms too, is it not?
No, Silver
No?
Flame is only Eberron. I
Okay.
don't know what if there might be an equivalent in Forgotten Realms, but I don't know what that is. I know for sure that Silver Flame is only Eberron. And they're very, very much like anti-vampire, anti-werewolf, anti-mutant of any sort. And they're adamant about it. They're not compromising on anything in that way. But there is no Silver Flame in Bathroom. So you guys don't heed any of the warnings. Full moon, lycanthropy, were creatures, experimentation, and you get down there, and I think Rook gets bit on his arm, and
Poor Rook getting bit, but I guess he's
No,
already dead.
the wand did him.
what's that?
It was the rod for Rook.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was the rod. I think Rook got bit, but he resisted the the fever.
At this
But-
point, we hadn't quite figured out how tanks work, and so everyone was just up there in the front.
Well,
Yeah.
and our tank, this is where we started learning about Celestine's diplomacy skills.
Not great.
He holds up the medallion of the turtle, and he screams at these were creatures, "Tell us where they are!"
That's right.
And then I have a bunch of combat listed after that, so I guess
They didn't understand what he was saying, and they just
Mhm.
wanted to bite. But I do remember Occam getting bit. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yep.
yeah.
That plays a really big part in Occam's story for the rest of his role in the
Yes.
game. Yeah.
So Rook resisted the fever, but Occam actually caught the fever, right? The frenzy.
Yeah.
It was discovered that it was going to be incurable for him.
Yes. So,
So,
in battles
There
going
was sort
forward,
of like clock.
Occam was
Good.
actually he was up on his steed, his onyx steed, like above the water, and there was one were creature left, one were rat left, and he got bit by that last one.
yes, that's right. The party did discover what happened to the brothers, and they ended up finding a place where they were kind of sleeping in a pile of skins, and there were a lot of bones and a lot of carcasses of things, and they ended up letting the brothers go because they sort of had compassion on them. And was there anything else there? Was there an interchange?
We fought the brothers, or momentarily, didn't we?
You did. I'm trying to remember what actually went down. Joe, do you have that written down?
Yeah. So, we ended up fighting the brothers, and they were going back and forth between their two forms, and eventually, in their with it moments, they were saying, "Kill us, please, kill me," and then they'd change again and keep attacking. And then eventually they like plead, like, just, we can't go back to our father. You got to let us go. There's these woods that we can escape to. We can be safe and happy there, and we won't hurt people. And so that's what we let them do.
Mm-hmm. And so you let the Were brothers go, and
Let's see here. Oh, there was another part here that's important. During the fight, it got pretty dire, and we summoned Silverbell.
yes, that's right.
This
And
is
during the
also
fight-
important.
During the fight,
Yes.
Silverbell also was bitten and got the fever.
Yes.
And he's a lich. He's fine. We dismissed him, but later on that became a significant thing.
For sure. You went back to the mayor. You told him about his son, both of his sons, and the mayor said, "Well, thank you. This is, something I can rest now. I'm glad they're at peace." and that they're alive. And he assigned you a guide. Do you guys remember what the name of the guide was?
Oh,
Oh,
It was Tad.
Daffodil? Oh, not Tad.
Tad.
It was
Right.
Tad.
When does
Remember
didn't Tad have
Tad.
Daffodil with him?
Druid's favorite.
No, Daffodil showed up when you went to the Druids.
Okay. Because one other thing about Silverbell is that he was in such a condition that was worse for wear that we actually gave him his phylactery back.
Yeah, that was at a different point, right?
That was
A little bit later.
but that was a
I'm
little
pretty
bit later. Yeah,
I'm pretty
wasn't
sure that
this.
after the Were Lich, we gave him his phylactery back because eventually we felt bad and decided to go to his tower and find him.
I'm trying to remember when you gave him his bell back, but I don't know if it was at that time.
It was my character had already
I
been.
think it was at another time. It was at one other time that we called him, and we saw he was looking worse for wear.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
so at that point, we felt bad, and we gave him back his bell.
that's right.
It was later in the
saying-
story
Sorry.
when my character was introduced. We were fighting that like vampire lady that controlled that kingdom.
Yes, that's right. That was in Korth when you guys were investigating Caius the Third.
That was after we'd already gotten it back from him. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
So Tad was
Tad.
He was the strong silent type, and he was assigned to you guys to guide you to Sharn, right? So he helped you get there by wagon, by traveling at night. And how did you guys end up at the Bloody Bowl?
How did we get there?
Yeah, do you remember?
Do we have a breakdown?
I think
or
it was
something?
a pit stop along the way. We were looking for a place to stay, and if I remember, I think Tad suggested it. About
Yeah.
that?
Did he say that he had some business to take care of? Or did he
I don't
suggest
remember.
that?
I could fully believe
Yeah.
him saying something like that, but I remember going to the Bloody Bowl, and it seemed like it was his idea, if I remember correctly.
So if we could just, we missed one other important thing after we picked up Tad and we left Batheron. Like a day into the journey, we come across like a stream crossing, and we've come across some guys fighting. There are some humans. They look like travelers, not like the Miners Guild.
I'm gonna be right back. Okay.
Sure.
And they're fighting some. They're fighting like a tiefling and a bugbear or something like that. And they end up. Go ahead and you remember some of the details of this one, Justin?
I do, yeah. Yeah, they you guys sort of had a difficulty figuring out who was the bad guy and who was the good guy. You were kind of coming up upon this encounter where two different sides were fighting, and I think you just picked, to help protect the two in robes that were kind of by the edge of the river. They were kind of in a little encampment, and you kind of determined that this other group was trying to infiltrate their camp and kill them, and they ended up killing the two in robes, one in a blue robe, one in a green robe, and they grabbed didn't they grab a chest?
They grab a little box. Yeah.
A little box, and then they jumped in a boat and headed down the river, right?
Right. And we
Right.
had this it seems like it's in slow motion now, of course. But we had kind of opportunities to stop them and talk with them and prevent them from getting away, and we just were not very decisive about it,
Mhm.
and so they ended up getting away with something, which
Yeah.
we found out later that it was a pretty an important something.
Yeah.
But then after they get away, we're in the middle of these camp examining these bodies and a proof, and there's this wizard there who says his name is Usador.
Wizard of the 12th realms of Karnath, right? He kind of went on and on
Yeah,
and on.
yeah.
Right.
He went on and on and on.
Master of Light and
anybody-
Shadow,
I was gonna say if anybody
Manipulator
remembers
of-
his full name.
manipulator of magical delights. Like, what else?
Yeah,
I love
you-
that name.
Do you have the whole thing written down?
I probably do somewhere, but
Okay.
I'm not here.
Anyway, I don't remember. I did steal that from a podcast I was listening to at the time.
Stole and twisted it a little bit.
I twisted it a little bit to fit Eberron, but yes. But he introduced himself as Usador the Black, and he explained to you who these two dead robed figures were. They were two of the mages of the 12, and they were Bob the Blue and Timor the Green, and they both represented separate houses in the realm of Eberron, and they were now dead, and the thing that they were trying to protect was something that was really important.
We said, "What was in the black box?" And he says, "Something very bad."
That's right. Yes. So something very bad. And then
I have a lot of blank space on my page, which means he said a lot of stuff that I wanted to write down
yeah.
later. But the thing I do have written down is we send him on his way.
Yes.
I think he tried to recruit us, and his demeanor, because he was so like
Right.
blustering and kind of pompous, and we just didn't trust him at
Yeah.
all.
Right. That's totally
I mean,
right.
he was
He
a
tried to
goofy
recruit us.
Gandalf.
He tried to recruit us, and we weren't happy.
That's
I
right.
think he seemed like a goofy Gandalf, like not
Yeah.
terribly trustworthy, and so we're just like, no, go on, crazy man, we've got things to do.
Yeah.
And even though we learned more about him later, and it's not like he was wrong, still I'm not sure we made the wrong choice.
Right. Right.
I don't know.
No, I mean he I think he's kept character the whole time. So but you guys had to make in that moment a very uneducated, like judgment about him, and you guys went ahead and said, no, that's fine. We'll,
Yeah.
maybe we'll stop by later. And so you kept pursuing your approach to Sharn.
And Tad knows about a place called the Bull's Blood Inn.
That's right.
The
The
Bull's Blood.
Bull's
And
Blood
like
Inn.
this is a part where we were trying to navigate cross country with this cart, and like,
Yep.
if you have to make a travel check in D&D, like we blew all the checks. Our cart wheels were breaking, and like
Right, that's right.
it wasn't going well.
That was for sure an experiment
It was
with
not
with
well.
cross country travel.
Even with because we were at this point we were using the Tuathan road whistle.
That's right.
So Tad takes us to the Dragonwood, and he takes us to a waterfall with a rowboat at the base of the waterfall.
Mhm.
And we have to get in the rowboat and pull on a rope under the waterfall and through the waterfall into a cave. And then into the darkness, we saw like a light ahead, and that was the entrance to the Bull's Blood Inn.
Yeah.
Which I think is super fun.
I think this would probably be a good spot to kind of like maybe pause for the evening. This will continue, and I think it would probably be good for us to do it next week as well. Just kind of given some schedules and things like that, to do a recap, so that no one misses anything. Because I know that Jake, I might be missing next week, and anyway, we have the potential to not have a full group again. But I also want to be mindful of our time and not do a 4-hour stream, which we could do. But yeah, I think we'll stop here. There is so much more story. And Joe, what's our timeline? Where are we in
real life? This is
real
now
world?
November 21st of 2016.
Okay, so we still have
Yeah.
5 years of adventuring left.
Now, yeah, there's going to be sections where I was out of the game for a bit, so other people will have to.
Yeah, Jeremiah, aka Vakias, has just been sitting there this whole time.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't even show up. I mean, I don't even start playing like a character. Like I was filling in for Rook till like what 2000, the end of 2016, maybe 2017.
Yeah, but before then, we replaced Joe's character once.
That's right.
And then we have not yet even invited Vakias in. So
Some would argue that, well, spoiler, one of my characters leaves, but you've never replaced him. He's irreplaceable.
That's really true. Yeah. He took himself with him. He did not.
Yeah.
He was not replaced.
Well, we haven't even talked about that.
That's
Haven't even
not
talked
fair.
about
Occam got replaced.
Occam was replaced.
No way.
Celestine was replaced for a moment.
No.
That was
Yeah.
we were flirting with the idea of a new character. I wanted to make a backup character.
Right.
I was
right.
flirting with the idea of
Occam
having a
does get an
character that
ending.
actually had a backstory, and
That's right.
we made it happen. And then I forgot how hard it is for this group to find somebody once they've been missing. And Celestine has been gone for almost a year, guys. Come on.
I know. There's so
With
funny.
One could say it's your fault, Jake.
Don't suggest things to your dungeon master that have anything to do with your current character taking a leave of absence. I'll just tell you that much.
The grass is always green.
I mean, when you leave it up to all of the characters, you know, it's funny how it just naturally happens. There's a natural flow to it.
It's true.
Maybe Celestine wasn't that important to the whole story. I'm not really sure. Well,
I do love your optimism that we're ever going to find him again, though.
I mean, the fact that Justin hasn't been telling me what he's been up to while he's been gone has got me a little bit worried.
you know, and I am waiting for the time that you all have approached this issue and come up with some sort of solution that lends a conclusion for me and the ability for me to actually tell Jake what's going on, because we're not there. We have not approached that yet. There really is no resolution at this point. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And for those of you listening, you know,
We're skipping way ahead.
We're skipping way ahead, and there's an interesting dynamic with when your player comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm getting kind of bored of this character. I'd like a new one, or I'd like to try something new for a little bit." I take them seriously, and I make it happen within the next 2 sessions. I don't wait. I immediately press the eject button in a very beautiful, very like character-oriented way, in true like narrative fashion, and then I replace it with the character they want to play, and we go on. But
It was a complete blast for the first 5 months.
And
But someone says-
sometimes he'll present something, and your character has no choice but to act, and even if
Yeah.
it means anyway,
right,
more spoilers.
and we'll definitely talk about that, and that is that's a real thing, and I definitely learned from that experience, and
me too.
became better for it. I don't think that I would ever handle a character removal in that way again, but I appreciate your grace in how Tam left us. So
Well, and also, I mean, as a player, you learn a lot about character creation and backstories, and even playing the game, first sit down, we don't really. I had never played game where you interact with people like this before.
Yeah.
I had always played games to win. You know,
Right.
and playing a
Joe,
game to
Joe
win
and I
is
were definitely playing to win.
is much different than playing a game to tell a story, you know, with your friends.
So
And you can
yeah.
create a story. Like I created a story with a backstory and goals and ambitions that were not very conducive to telling a cool story with my friends. It was a cool story, but it wasn't a great character backstory.
The other thing that I did is I gave overpowered weapons to the two min-maxers of the whole group. Like I gave really powerful weapons to the two people that would say, "Oh, cool! I can win the game at this point." Like, lesson
Raise your
learned.
hand, Joe.
But anyway,
Yep.
I hope all of you listening have not been bored by our stories. This is fun for us to retell and to remind ourselves of where we've come from. And we have literally just touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this epic story. And there is so much more to be had here. And I hope you tune in next week. We'll continue this. Just it's a really good recap for all of us, and a really good time to remember where we started and how much story we've created together.
And we would love questions or comments if there is like something doesn't make sense. Like, why did you guys do that? Or why didn't you do this? Like,
Yeah.
for sure. Feedback encouraged. And they can give
even-
us feedback at, I don't know. Where can they give us feedback?
Well, we're pretty new at this. I think this is only our third or fourth stream on Twitch. So we're putting things together as we go. All of us, obviously this is not our full-time job. So this is something that we do as a hobby, and we're welcome and open to criticism as well as feedback and suggestions. This is just kind of something that we do for fun, D&D, as well as streaming this just for people that are interested in watching. So within the next day or so, I should be able to have the YouTube page open, which will be linked on our Twitch, which will just be twitch.tv/DND guys. So you'll be able to find our YouTube channel off of our Twitch page, and this entire session will be on YouTube. As well as the rest of our socials, which are, as of yet, uncreated. Jeremiah and I are both teachers, and as you know, teachers don't have a lot to do in the summertime other than relax. So
We
Jeremiah
have some
and I...
things to do.
Oh yeah, we do have some things to do, but for the most part, the priority is relaxing. So Jeremiah and I will be working on some of the socials, and everything you'll be able to find on our Twitch page once it goes live.
Cool.
And with that, we'll sign off.
Thanks, guys.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Have a good
It was
week.
fun. See you next week.